What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode for Project Bombshell. And as you can tell, we're going to be installing the SICK PS Lighting Solutions headlights on the car today. I get questions about these headlights all the time on my car, and I decided that because I did the video on mine and it's not that great because it was kind of like in retrospect I would have done it a little differently. I'm going to basically dedicate this entire video just to the headlights to clarify what the wires are, what I'm tapping into, making it very specific for you all so that it's a good guide for anyone that decides that they want to pick up a set of these lights, because they are awesome freaking lights. You know, I'd hate for anybody to pick a set up and then have issues and decide that it's not worth the trouble, because honestly it's not that big of a deal to wire them up. It's just a matter of knowing what everything does and where you want to tap into on the car for it. So that being said, let me go ahead and show you the headlights, what we're working with, and we'll go from there. Here's the jumble of harness, kind of sort of laid out in a manner that I know where everything is at. Starting off with the harness, you have your Bluetooth controller. From there is the power and ground wires coming right off of the controller, and then you have your three different potential options that can come from it. So you may decide that you just want halos, just demonize, whatever. So depending on how many features you can get, which is up to 3 on this Bluetooth controller, the Moroso Bluetooth controller, he'll kind of set up the harness and everything based around that. So the first section of the harness here, we have the demonize, and right off, they both come off, and then at the very end they just have the plugs wherever they are. Yeah, so number 1, and usually he does label them too, so it makes it super easy when plugging in back into the headlights. So on the demonize, it'll say on the back of the box that it's just the RGB demon, nothing too fancy there. It's got one black wire that comes off of it. You might think this is a ground, but it's actually not. This wire is basically like an auto cutoff wire. This is just kind of a nice safety feature, so you can tap this into the headlight signal wire so that when your headlights kick on, it'll actually shut off the demon so you don't overheat the housings. From there we have the next section of the harness, which right here is the halos. You can see again on the back, 90mm halos. And then on these you have 2 wires. You have one black and then one orange. So the black on these is a ground, and then the orange is actually going to be your turn signal wire. So that's kind of like what sends the signal to the DRLs or halos to cue the turn signal. They finish with a clip on the end, just like the demonize. Then lastly, on this controller, we have the third section, which is going to be long and then drops all the way down to the boxes over here. Now these are for the DRLs. You have your input on the DRL and then your output, and the output is what goes to the headlight. Off the DRL, you have a couple wires, red, white, orange, and black. I don't remember what the red and white do. Something to do with like auto on, auto off or something, but talking to Joey, he said to just kind of bypass them, so we're going to forget about these and just use the orange and the black, which are the same as the halos. So you have your ground and then your orange, which is the turn signal. So that's that on the main harness. And with Melissa's headlights, we do have a really fancy lower color chasing bar, so I'll show you that real quick. So this little lower bar on the bottom of the headlight is going to be a color chasing LED. So that's going to be really cool, and this is the module for it, or the control box. So it's a separate Bluetooth controller from the Moroso one that's over there. So this is a whole nother separate thing that you may not opt for. It definitely adds some extra pricing to the headlights, because obviously now you're buying not 1 but 2 Bluetooth controllers. But this one's fairly straightforward the way that we're going to be setting it up. So on the back you can see it is input. You've got your 12 volt positive and then your negative. So right off of it you've got a positive wire with a fuse and then a negative. So pretty straightforward. You're just going to obviously want to put power and ground. And then out of the box you have it to this module here. And off of this module, it definitely gets to be a little bit convoluted and confusing because there's a lot of different wires going on. But to my understanding, the red would be one side and the blue would be the other. So you also have a red and blue thin wire coming off of the box here. So here's one red and then here's the blue. And the intent here is that if you were to put one headlight to red and one to blue, red and blue would actually be your signal wire, just like the orange on the other controller. But we're not going to do it that way on her car. We're just going to do 2 red onto the headlights. The intent there is that so that when she turns them on, they both do the same things every time, because we don't really need to worry about the red and the blue. So to make things a little bit simpler. And then the last 2 are, you have this wire coming off, which goes to this. I'm just gonna assume that this is probably like an antenna of some sort, whatever makes the Bluetooth stuff work. And then your white right here, which this is actually gonna be the white signal or white color on the DRLs. I believe the intent there is so that, you know, when you kick them on or something, if you want them to automatically jump to white when you're driving or whatever, DRLs, that type of thing, that's what that's going to be for. So what I'm going to actually do is tap this into the headlight signal bulb, just like I do the demonize with the auto cutoff, so that when the headlights kick on, these automatically go to white. I believe you can turn them white, you know, separately in the app that controls it too, but I figured that was just going to be a good way of making sure that anytime she's driving, that's not like a color or something. It's just going to be a good little safety switch. All right, so with that explanation out of the way, I know you guys are probably already like, whoa, dude, that was a lot. I'm not tracking. I'm going to show you where I tap in every wire, so I'm going to make it extremely easy for you guys to replicate the process. So the first thing I want to do is pretty much lay the wiring throughout the car where, you know, and route it to where it needs to be generally. So we'll start off by putting this in and just kind of going from there. And I am going to be doing this basically the way I did mine, with a switch in the center console to flip them on, you know, turn the key off, walk away from the car and have it turned on. That shows, so you don't have to worry about like the battery dying and all that good stuff. So that's the general idea here. All right, so went ahead and got a ton of stuff done off camera. I figured I'd kind of give you guys a quick overview of what I did and kind of how I set things up so far. I do have one headlight in place, and that was just for testing purposes, just to make sure the wiring stuff I did so far is good. So the way I set it up is I have a power wire off the power of the battery, obviously. You got your inline fuse, and I ended up actually tapping both of these into the same system so that they all come on together with the flip of the switch. So this is a 15 amp fuse because the one silver box came with a 10 amp, and then I've run a 7.5 in these, so I figured 15 probably was good middle ground without being too much. So 15 amp fuse, power wire, goes into the chassis of the car, comes through up through here. Then I've got my switch, which is power in, power out, which is the load, and then ground, which the ground I just have down in here somewhere. So power back out to the wire that comes through right here, and then I've got a little T where I soldered, and that was for splitting the wire, just kind of the way it worked out in terms of sizing. The wire then splits into both Bluetooth controllers. One power wire goes here, one power wire goes to the silver box, and then I kind of have it all nice and neatly tucked up in here. And then currently this stuff is kind of generally routed, not really anywhere special, because it's just chilling for testing purposes. I still have yet to do that, but got the wire, power wire through. And then also we obviously have to ground. So this one had a nice ground already on it, and then this one I just added a little O connector thing, I don't know, circle connector, whatever. So just ran it off of this ground here on the chassis. And then the wiring all comes through, and I did a little bit of testing. Everything works good so far. All the lights kick on the headlight, so that's good. May not seem like a lot, but that took a long time to really get it all kind of situated and you know, nice and clean the way I like it. So I'm gonna call it a night here, but we should be picking this back up tomorrow to kind of wrap everything up. Main thing I want to note is, like I said, I did run both of these Bluetooth controllers off the same switch. You could do it so that you ran them separately off of two separate switches. I personally just felt like it would be easiest to run it off of one switch and then have all the lights come on together, because I don't really see why you would want just one or the other. And I'm pretty sure in the app you can probably turn off an individual light setting on any of them, so I figured, you know, might as well just have them all come on together. I also happen to still have some of that dual lock stuff from the window louvers, so I dual locked the little silver box into place so it's nice and rock solid. Solid progress made so far. At this point it's really just kind of like wire tucking and then doing some final wiring in terms of like the turn signals and grounds. That's pretty much it, actually. The majority of it is power and ground, because that's the main things you need to run those Bluetooth controllers. Otherwise those harnesses are super nice and just like plug and play. All right, And just like that, the wiring's all done. I didn't feel like recording all of it because I figured it was not that exciting, but I am going to show you guys exactly the wires I tapped into with everything. So let's kind of get into it. So first off, obviously, as we touched on earlier, we have our main power wire off of the battery. It goes into the switch. Then you have your on and off on the switch, power, and then the ground that comes right off of the switch onto the chassis. And so from there, the power comes here up to the two controllers where I split it. So power to the Bluetooth Moroso controller and then the alternate controller. And then these guys both ground right up here on the chassis there with their two separate eyelet connector things. And then I have them both kind of chilling up in here. So from there, I have all the wiring kind of routed. It kind of looks like a mess, but I swear it's actually pretty organized. So that the ones that need to come through right here and then run across. Obviously this still has to get like zip tied and stuff like that to kind of tighten it all up. And then right here it comes over back through kind of behind the ABS box. And then where they need to go, these two for the underside of the headlight come through here, and the other ones come up here because this connector actually kind of sits up here on the headlight. Lastly, we have the color chasing bar, and that wire is like an extension adapter one that I kind of ran through, and it's just chilling over here for now until we connect everything. And then obviously we've got our main headlight. I didn't tap into anything on here, and I'll show you guys why there in a second. And then we have our turn signal bulb, which is chilling. And we just have the one wire tapped into that, which is for the turn signal. And that's the power wire off of the turn signal bulb. So you can't see it right now, but there's like a color wire, a black with a yellow, I think, stripe, and then like your ground, which is this one, long story. Anyways, you're going to want to tap into the color wire, which is the power wire for the turn signal bulb. And that's what you're going to want to use for the signal to the DRL bars and the halos for your turn signals. And I have them back here because they can't reach on the driver's side all the way that, you know, the length of the wire. So I brought them back down and then, you know, brought both of them into this single red wire, which then runs over to the turn signal. Other than that, I did have to do the grounds off of the halo and the DRLs. So those are the same idea. They come together here and then go down into one black wire, which is grounded right up here where the headlight bolt is. Now over here does look a little bit messier, unfortunately, but it is very straightforward what I did here. Just like the other side, I had to do a ground for the DRLs and halos, which is these two right here. Again, two into one, which comes up and then onto this ground here on the chassis. So that's all there is to that. And then the turn signal one comes in over here. It's just kind of hanging out back here right now. But same idea, two yellow wires, two into one, and then it taps into the turn signal wire, which again is the color wire off of the turn signal bulb, not either of the blacks. One is a trigger wire and then one is a ground, and you need to reference the power wire. I accidentally referenced the trigger and it doesn't work that way. Okay, and then this wire, so this is actually a couple things. So I've got two of the black wires, and those are both for the demon eyes. The way that I do this is I tap those into the main headlight. So what the black wire on the demon eye does, like I said before, it's basically a kill switch so that when the headlights come on, the demon eyes turn off so that you don't overheat the housing. And then what this wire is the white power wire for the chasing lower bar LEDs. And my intent here was so that when she's driving around and, like, you know, kicks the headlights on, this automatically goes to white. And then these both just tap into the headlight switch. And you can do the demon eyes, you know, separately, one on each side of the headlight connector, but I figured I would just tube them both off of one to save myself a little bit of time. And yeah, I mean, just a little bit of wiring too. So, and the wire on the connector here is this blue with like a green stripe. That is the low beam wire. So that's the one you want to tap into. You can find like the wire schematics online. The rest of them are for like the DRLs and the grounds and stuff like that. One of them's high beams and then like a relay or something. So, but that's not really important. The one you want to use for the Demon Eye kill wire is this blue and green one. I believe that's like pin 1, honestly. I can't remember for sure which number pin it is, but that's the wire you need to tap into on the 1314 HID harness. It was a different wire on the 10 to 12 harness. I don't remember what. I apologize if that's your question, but a little bit of wire testing can kind of help you figure that out. Or even just, you know, looking up the schematics online, which is exactly what I did for this car. So with that, we've gone over all the wiring. Now all I have to do is pop the headlights in, and you guys can kind of see how these things work, and they're pretty sick. So let's do that. But there you have it, guys. That's kind of the you know, overall of the install. Hopefully that was a little bit more detailed for you guys that have more questions about the install in terms of like specifics as far as like what wires you should tap into. The lower chasing bar, the way I did it, you don't have to do it that way. You could do it where maybe you have the white tapped into something else if you're, you know, for like a switch or whatever. So that's one way you could go about that. That's just how I did it. You can also actually tap these in so that these are turn signals as well, but we opted not to go that route just for simplicity's sake. I think it might be a little too much if we had this going as well as those, or if we had just the lower bar. I think it might not be as visible when driving around, so like it becomes kind of like a safety concern at that point. But the DRLs and the halos are great for the turn signal. I use it on mine, absolutely love it. Here's kind of how I have the remaining wiring all tucked up, just kind of zip tied off there, because they definitely provide, you know, plenty so that you don't have to run into a concern of not having long enough wiring. But even when they're off, man, these things look sick. Another thing I noticed too, look at that side profile. That's legit, dude. It's aggressive, I love it. That bright white lower bar looks pretty sick just the way it is, but I think that's more or less going to wrap this video up for you guys. So hopefully you found it informative. It answered any additional questions you guys have about the install. I definitely recommend hitting up PS Lighting Solutions. I'll tag his information down below. Makes awesome headlights, as you can see. And then the other thing I'll show you too is like when he does them, it's like OEM or better type seal. So you can see no messy seal on that outside edge. So he does a great job of sealing these up really well. Oh yeah, I almost forgot one last little thing that not everyone knows and is recommended. Find some of these like silica gel packets and just open up like the main bulb housing and then just drop them into the bottom of the headlight, somewhere that, you know, it's not gonna like obviously work its way to the front, but it's in there so that when there is a potential moisture that may occur, because nothing's perfect, this will help keep the fogging to a minimum so that you don't have to concern yourself with that kind of thing. But yeah, there you have it, guys. I did also, you know, do the wiring for the fog lights, so now this car is ready to run the LED fog lights because that's what Melissa wants on the car. I've also got the transmission torque converter seal replaced. That's back in the car. That was a lot of work for just a $10 seal, but we're getting things done on the sucker, and honestly I think at this point we may be able to have it driving this weekend, which is like, for me, I think 3 or 4 days from now. As you can see, bumper's right here chilling, ready to go back on. I'm gonna have to get the car off the jack stands before I do that. But yeah, I mean, all we really need to worry about is the rear end, the suspension in the rear, and then the brakes. And then that's it for this thing in terms of mechanics. We do have to do a little bit more, you know, transmission fluid in it to make sure it's nice and bled through the system. And we did actually pick up an aluminum Moroso tank, so this guy's got to get swapped out. That actually just showed up today. This thing looks really freaking nice. Usually I tell people just get like the JPC one, and that's what's on my car, and it's black powder coated, but that looks really good in just the raw aluminum, and I think it might actually match the Steeda intake. So we'll see what Melissa thinks. That may be something we powder coat later on down the road, but for now it's going to be raw aluminum because we ain't got time to wait for powder coating right now. So that's the update on Project Bombshell for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this and found it informative if, you know, you were looking for more information on terms of the headlight install. So please check us out on Instagram. You can check those out below. That's going to be Bombshell 5.0 as well as Pokemaster BS 5.0 for my car. If you are new to the channel here, please consider subscribing and staying tuned for more awesome content like this. Hit the like button if you guys enjoyed the video, and that's going to do it. So peace out. I'll catch you in the next one.